Well, hello and welcome to Insight with Political Tours, the travel company led by reporters around the world. My name is Owen Bennett-Jones, sitting in for Nicholas Wood today. And we're going to be talking about these amazing parliamentary elections in Moldova, a big victory for the pro-EU elements of Moldovan society. Comes after years of ideological, geopolitical struggle. The European Union has pumped in huge amounts of money, and as we've often heard, Russia has also been very, very busy with bots and bribed voters, and even Orthodox priests chiming in, trying to get the pro-Russian vote up. But it was a big victory for Maia Sandu, the pro-European president. And to talk about it, we have Kamil Calus, Senior Research Fellow in Warsaw at the Centre for Eastern Studies, expert on Moldova and Romania. We've just met up 5 minutes ago. I was reminiscing about my time as a correspondent in Bucharest back in 1990. So now then, can you help us with the result, first of all, Kamil? How big a win was it?
First of all, hello, Owen. Good to see you. Hello, everybody. I would say that this result was simply amazing. And it's like that because of two reasons, basically. First of all, and you've already mentioned that, Russia was doing really a lot in order to influence electoral campaign, to influence final results of this election. Russia, we've got different estimations, but it's safe to say that Russia pumped around 200 up to 300 million euros to let's put it this way, its local assets, organizations, parties, activists. Russia used also this money to finance propaganda, particularly in the internet, to change the electoral results. And 300 million euros in a country as small as Moldova and as poor as Moldova, and we're talking about the poorest country in Europe, basically. I mean, right now Ukraine is a little bit poorer, but for obvious reasons. It's an amazing amount of money. I believe that Moldova spends around 300 million euros each year for its justice system, including all judges, prosecutors, and so on and so forth. So we can see the scale. So this is one reason why it was such a huge victory. And the other thing is that, PAS, Party of Action and Solidarity, pro-Western party, which won these elections, was in power since 2001. And those 4 years were really, really hard. And they were hard, first and foremost, because of the geopolitical reasons. I mean, full-scale war between Ukraine and Russia started in 2022. And of course, it influenced Moldova. Economic situation in Moldova was really hard, and actually quality of life of regular Moldovans decreased in those 4 years. It wasn't because of PAS and its policy, it was because of the general situation in the region. Energy prices increased by, I believe, gas prices increased fourfold, electricity twofold. At some point, inflation increased, I believe it was in 2022, in the second half of that year. Inflation increased, reached 34%. If we will analyze inflation during those 4 years, we will get a number around 64%. Economy is basically stagnating,
Sure, it was a difficult context for her.
It's very difficult, exactly. So from perspective of a general Moldovan, this government was not able to deliver when it comes to social, economic, and so on promises. Yeah. And even if you are very humble and understanding electorate, you will always blame your government for this kind of things, which is obvious. And yet they managed to get 52.4% of votes, which is not far from the result they've got in 2021. Sorry, a little bit over 50. So basically, the difference is around 2 percentage points. So it's really nothing, and this is why it's great success.
I was going to wait till later on to ask you this, but since you've given us the number of 200 to 300 million from the Russians, I mean, it is only fair to say that the European Union has put in billions into Moldova, hasn't it? I mean, it really has made it a very high priority and has spent proper money there.
True, that's true, of course, but we need to distinguish because, I mean, I already receive a lot of questions, particularly coming from critics of European Union who are, asking, okay, what's the difference between, right? I mean, Russia is paying some money to its political parties and European Union is paying some money or giving some money to pro-European parties. But it's not true. I mean, Russia is literally financing those political forces and political parties. Some of them are illegal already, and they are or either because they were considered unconstitutional or because they are simply already working as a organized crime organization. This is how Moldovan law perceives them. And also, Russia is using, or those organizations financed by Russia are using this money to, I don't know, buy votes. Like literally, they are paying voters to vote for them, and so on and so forth. Now, European Union is of course spending a lot of money in Moldova and is offering Moldova huge development assistance, because this is basically development assistance, but it's not aid or cash which is being given physically to the party. EU is not financing political parties as such. It is financing, of course, reform process. It is financing certain investments. It is financing infrastructural projects and so on and so forth. And of course, they are, I mean, this kind of investments are building up support for pro-European parties, obviously, but as you can see, difference is huge, and help from EU is totally transparent, while money coming from Russia are coming to Moldova in a very shady way, crypto, prepaid cards, which are issued by Russian banks, which are under sanctions since 2022, sometimes cash, which is brought on by mules, basically, via by air, by plane. So that's the difference. That's the main difference.
Sure. Now, we should just get the result clear as well, because you said that the European parties, the pro-European parties, the existing governing party, got 52%. What did the pro-Russian parties get?
Well, it depends on how we'll count it. And sorry, I made a mistake. It's 50.2, not 52. The 50.2, but still, yeah. So 52.4 was the result in 2021. So as I said, the difference of around 2 percentage points. When it comes to pro-Russian parties, basically there was only one pro-Russian, like openly pro-Russian party, which managed to get to the parliament. I'm talking about party, or rather political bloc. It's political bloc, which consists of 4 parties, which actually used to consist of 4 parties because one of them was banned, basically 3 parties. And this bloc gathered 24% of votes. And we are right now talking about a bloc which is openly, first of all, using communist symbolic. They have a red star, hammer and sickle, you name it. They are also trying to appeal to this good old Soviet or post-Soviet sentiment. And they are, of course, perpetuating this idea that we need to cooperate with Russia, that, of course, maybe Russia is not the best country in the world. And, of course, there's this war, which is very controversial and which we don't want to have anything in common with. But we need to cooperate with Russia. And, of course, Russia is a very important partner for us, because without Russia, we will lose our independence. Romanians will take over Moldova and so on and so forth, right? Or NATO will come here and turn Moldova into battleground or training ground for its action in Ukraine. So basically, when it comes to strictly pro-Russian forces, there's only one party like that. But there are also 2, or political bloc. There are also 2 other parties which are considered to be linked to Kremlin. And first one is the Electoral Bloc Alternativa, so Electoral Bloc Alternative, and they gathered around 8% of votes. And this is a bloc which consists of 3 parties and one quite well-known individual, former Prosecutor General and candidate in the presidential election in 2024. And this bloc is formally, and that's important, is formally, and when it comes to its rhetoric and program, pro-European. They are trying to present themselves as an alternative, hence the name, to a ruling Party of Action and Solidarity. They claim that they want Moldova to become part of European Union. They want Moldova to continue on its reform path and so on and so forth. But at the same time, they simply don't like the way PAS is doing this, right? And they are criticizing PAS. if you will think about it without knowing the context, you can say that, well, it's fine. I mean, it's good, right, that we've got some other opposition party, the pro-European one. But the problem is that basically all people, and I'm talking about leaders of this party, are linked to pro-Russian, or used to be members of pro-Russian parties just a couple of years before, or still have got some links with Moscow. And we actually managed to meet some of those people during our political tours to Moldova. Recently, we met, for example, Guy Vartanyan, that's the politician of Armenian origin. You can hear this from from his name. He is the advisor on international affairs of Mayor of Chisinau. And Mayor of Chisinau is one of the leaders of parties which are members of this group, and those people used to be members of the Socialist Party. Socialist Party, the same Socialist Party which today represent the core of this pro-Russian political group which entered parliament. Mayor of Chisinau, Ion Cioban, one of the most recognizable leaders of Alternativa, he became mayor of Chisinau many years ago already. Right now he is in his second term, thanks to the help he received from Russian politechnologists, so basically PR specialists who were helping him in organize his campaign. So, and he was of course participating in different kind of marches, rallies against European integration just a couple of years ago. So there is general consensus among pro-European commentators and pro-European politicians in Moldova that entire bloc Alternativa is kind of a Trojan horse of Russia. That the idea was to create a bloc or create, political force which will be able to sip or take away some voters from this cohort of electorate which will be voting for PAS. And the last force, which, I mean, there are two, but the last force which can be kind of considered pro-Russian is our party, led by Renato Usaty. Amazing guy. I mean, amazing because he's very colorful. He's in Moldovan politics since 2013, 2014 already, and he's trying to present himself as this kind of a Russian Robin Hood or Russian post-Soviet Robin Hood. He's trying to build this image of a gangster from 90s who, yeah, maybe is not, the best boy. I mean, yeah, he can do some bad things, but he's kind. He's kind in his heart, and he really wants to help the regular Moldovans. He wants, as he said, he wants pensioners in Moldova to live exactly like his parents do, so to have certain money, to have good quality of life, and so on and so forth. And he's even, dressing up like this kind of a 90s style gangster, leather jacket, things like that, riding this huge Escalade car and so on and so forth. He used to be pro-Russian, but now he tried to present himself as a Moldovan sovereignist or centrist, let's put it this way. So he claims that he don't want to cooperate with Russia, he don't want to cooperate with EU. Moldova should, try to build its own future, exactly, and he would be more than happy to I don't know, kill, I mean, really execute all corrupted politicians and so on and so forth. He's got links to Russia, and obviously, but also there are certain sources, and they are quite trustworthy, which claims that he is also linked already to certain Western, EU countries, like Romania, for example. So he's considered to be somewhere in the middle. But of course, still he uses sometimes this post-Soviet, Sovieto-sentimental narrative and rhetorics.
You mentioned Romania there, and I wanted to ask you about that, because the last sort of political grouping we'll deal with in the account of this election, because they did better than people imagined they would do, was the pro-union with Romania party. So, we got pro-EU and we got pro-Russia, but there is also, a party that wants the Moldovans and Romanians to be united. They all speak Romanian, and you could make the case that Greater Romania and so on, that should all be one country.
That's true, but let's start with the general idea, and let's make the statement. Basically, all pro-Western Moldovan politicians, maybe not all, but 80% of them, 70% of them, they consider themselves Romanian, and most of them, definitely over 50%, I believe also like around 60 to 70%, they support the idea of so-called unirea, so reunification of those two countries. So it's nothing new. The only difference is that mainstream pro-Western political parties perceive the path to unification a little bit different. They believe that Moldova, first and foremost, should reform itself, should become proper European state, stable one, should join European Union, basically, should modernize itself, and then, when it will be ready, it will be already not corrupted, it will have, rule of law, and so on and so forth, then both societies on the both sides of the Prut River, which divides both countries, would decide, right, finally. And this is that's kind of a mainstream idea, and this is also the idea that the Romanian politicians are trying to perpetuate. And it's totally understandable, because this actually puts all costs of reunification on the European taxpayer and not on Romanian or Moldovan taxpayer, right? Because you're using European Union as an instrument to modernize and sanitize, basically, Moldova, and then you're just signing agreement on reunification, or maybe not, because it will be, for many Romanian politicians, it will be better to have two Romanian states in European Union than one. So it's nothing new. But you're right, we've got one party which crossed the threshold, even though nobody really expected that. It's a party called Democracy at Home. Abbreviation DA, which means yes in Romanian. And this party, well, why it was a surprise? According to opinion polls, they were meant to receive around 2 to 3% of votes, and they ended up with 5.7 almost. 0.7 percentage points over the threshold, 5% threshold. And yes, this party is openly unionistic, pro-unionist, so they are calling for reunification as soon as possible, as fast as possible. Yes, maybe after joining EU, but if it will be possible before, even better. And this party, which is important, is supported by Alliance for the Unity of Romania, so-called AUR. And this is right now the most popular party in Romania, party which, according to opinion polls, can count on around 42% even of all votes in Romania. This is conservative nationalistic party, Eurosceptical. They are not they are not promoting idea of Romania leaving EU, but they would like to reform EU in this more conservative manner. So they are basically member of ECR within European Parliament, and that's it. And this party was basically I wouldn't say that they were their project, but kind of they were political projects of AUR. AUR did a great job organizing their electoral campaign, or their campaign in the social media in particular. AUR is one of those parties, and we've got many of such parties in Europe, and not only in Europe, which comprises of many young people who are digital natives, and they feel very well on TikTok, they feel very well on Facebook, Telegram, you name it, so they can organize very good electoral campaigns using social media, and they did it for Mr. Kostiuk, who is leader of Democracy at Home, and they helped him cross this threshold, and this is why he entered parliament. And now this party, even though is of course pro-European and consider indefinitely anti-Russian and so on and so forth, this party will be a troublemaker for PAS. First and foremost, because they are openly criticizing PAS all the time. Leader of Democracy at Home is sometimes calls PAS a mafia, organization which is trying to fight with its political opponents with illegal means, that they are either persecuting opposition and so on and so forth, that they are corrupted, that they've got some illegal money on their accounts, and you name it, right? But what's even more problem, and they are doing this from pro-Western and pro-European perspective, because from perspective of party like PAS, it's really easy to defend yourself from Russian propaganda or pro-Russian parties' propaganda. You can just say, guys, those are pro-Russian politicians. This is obvious they will attack us because they don't want us to go to EU, they don't want us to reform, and so on and so forth. But if you are attacked by pro-European colleagues, and not pro-European colleagues like Alternativa, who've got some links to Russia, then it became problematic. And what's even more problematic is that this party will be bringing this idea of UNIRA to the table all the time, and it's very subtle topic. Ruling pro-European PAS party, as I said, comprises of people which in most cases would like to see Moldova reunited with Romania. But it's not an idea which is supported by vast majority of population. According to opinion polls, around 30, maybe 40, but around 35, let's put it this way. So 1/3 of the population of Moldova is in favor of reunification. A lot of people are not. And if you're a ruling party, pro-Western ruling party, you need to balance, you need to basically want really to put it under the rug. You don't want to talk about this idea, because if you will say, yes, I would like reunification, then you will lose some part of your moderate electorate. If you will say, I don't want reunification, you will lose this pro-Romanian electorate. So you're trying not to talk about this at all. Once I remember President Maia Sandu, who is truly who is in fact a leader of this party, even though formally she's not, because she's president, so she needs to be independent. She said that she would like Moldova to become part of Romania at some point, and it was highly problematic. Since then, you know, it's actually quite ironic, right? You cannot really be prime minister, president, leader of a country, and at the same time promote idea of dissolving, of liquidation of your country, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's an unusual thing to ask a prime minister to do. Just to say, if people would like to ask a question, this is a very good time to start doing that. Either raise a digital hand or in some other way put it in a chat box or something like that, and we will definitely get your questions in. I'd just like to ask one more question about the electoral process, which was the disproportionate, compared to most countries, role of the diaspora vote. Why have so many Moldovans left? You know, how many have left? Where have they gone? And how do they vote?
As I've mentioned before, Moldova is one of the poorest nations in Europe, and unfortunately it is like that since the very beginning of 90s. Moldova, even though was relatively rich as a Soviet republic, because it was subsidized by Moscow, when it became independent, it turned out that it's really not able to Moldova don't really have any proper industry. They don't have really natural resources. The only industry Moldova had during Soviet times was located on the left bank of the Dniester River, so in today Transnistria, separatistic region, which is basically under Russian control. So Moldova was, simply speaking, very poor, and not only it was poor, but it was also kind of ideologically lost for the first 10 years of its existence. So between 1990, let's put it this way, 1991 till 2001, politicians within Moldova were still kind of quarreling about the very core of Moldovan politics. So they were quarreling whether Moldova should remain independent or should it reunite with Romania? And if it is independent, if it's meant to remain independent, where should it go, right? Should it integrate more to the west, more to the east, and so on and so forth? So it all basically influenced Moldovan economy in a very negative way, and generally Moldovan state. And it forced many Moldovans to look for better life and some money to send to their families abroad. And well, first, for first 2 decades, the most popular destination for migrants was Russia, actually Russian Federation. And for obvious reason, all Moldovans were speaking Russian. Russian regulations regarding migrants, particularly post-Soviet migrants, were really liberal. You could basically go there. Formally, you should leave after a couple of months, but nobody was really checking that. And even if you had just to leave for 1 day, then you could return. So basically, Russia was very popular, and it was particularly popular among Moldovan construction workers who were going there in particular in early 2000 during this economic boom. which started there after Putin came to power. So Russia was the most important country when it comes to migration. And then it was Italy. Italy, a little bit of Spain, let's put it this way, Portugal, but Italy was the second largest country which Moldovan migrants were choosing. And that's for also cultural and language reasons. Romanian language, so language which is used by Moldovan on the daily basis, is of Latin group of languages, and it's relatively similar to Italian. It's relatively easy for Moldovans or Romanians to learn some basic Italians, and this is why they were choosing this direction. This country was mostly popular among women from Moldova who are working in services, who are working as who are helping older people, who are working as nurses, and so on and so forth. So Italy was the second one, and all the other countries which are using Latin language, hence. Hence Spain, hence Portugal, France as well, a little bit, and so on and so forth. So it used to be like that. Now it changed. Right now, situation looks a little bit different because since 2014, Russia is losing its importance as a destination for Moldovan migrants, and it is happening because of Russian politics. I mean, Russia attacked Ukraine, as we remember, in 2014. It annexed Crimea, it attacked Donbas. We remember what happened with Russian economy back then. Russian ruble lost a significant part of its value. And also, Russia, in order to punish Moldova for European integration aspiration, changed regulation for Moldovan migrants, which are right now far harsher. And it's not as easy as it used to be for Moldovans to actually go to Russia and work there. So not only it became less, let's put it this way, competitive, because you're still earning in Russian rubles, which are not as strong as they used to be. And plus, it's not as easy to go there. So people started to move to other countries. A lot of them decided to re-emigrate to the West. Some of them moved to other countries where you could use Russian language and work in the construction sector, such as Israel, for example. And Israel at some point became, because Russian language is very much in use in Israel, as we all know. And when it comes to investments in the construction sector, it's still there, of course. It's a rich country. So a lot of Moldovans were going there as well. But in general, right now, definitely around 70–80% of Moldovan migration, and we are talking about 1 million people. So this entire cohort of Moldovan migrants is around 1 million, is in the Western Europe, US, UK, and so on.
And they tend to vote pro-European, I presume.
80–90% of them are pro-European, yes. In Russia, we used to have 500,000, really. So as I said, it was very popular. Now it's really hard to say how many Moldovan migrants are in Russia, but I would say that definitely less and far less probably than 100,000. Maybe 40, maybe 50,000. Maybe 100,000 if we will count all people with Moldovan passports and also Russian passport. And we need to remember that a lot of Russians since 2022 kind of reminded themselves that they have some Moldovan roots and asked for Moldovan passports, because now it's better to have Moldovan passports than just Russian one, right? Yeah.
Okay, I've got lots of questions coming in. So I'm going to say to Alex, if you'd like to promote people up to that panel, then I can bring people in to ask the questions themselves. But while we're waiting for that, I'm going to say that Marty likes your shirt. I'll answer that for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And secondly, there's a question here. How does this new election promote or make difficult the goal of getting into the EU? And I've got lots of questions, so can we keep them fairly tight, the answers?
Sure. So how does, could you repeat the question?
Does this advance, how much does this advance membership of the European Union?
Yes. This result is actually great. We will have, again, stable majority formed by the same party, which is responsible for Moldova obtaining candidacy status, beginning negotiations with European Union in 2024. And I personally personally believe that if nothing happens, I mean, and I'm talking about some serious thing like missile strike on Chisinau by Russia, Moldova will be able to finish negotiations with European Union by 2028, 2029, so till the end of this term of parliament. I'm not talking about joining European Union, because that's another thing. It all depends on the political climate. But I believe they will be able to finalize negotiation and reform process till 2028 with this party at helm of the country.
Welcome, Sarah.
Hello there. How are you?
Very well. What's your question?
My question is, what difference in the short to medium term will this very strong win make to Moldova?
So I believe that's very similar.
Economically, sorry.
Economically. Economically. Generally speaking, so first and foremost, as I said, economic situation of Moldova is pretty dire, and it's like that because of the situation in the region. Moldova economy is stagnating. For last 3 years, basically, there was almost no economic growth. Export is falling, and this is because this country is not a member of European Union, not a member of NATO. It's on the front line, basically. It's right next to Ukraine. It's got Russian troops on its territory. So I'm talking about Transnistria, of course, and it makes a lot of investors not really, it's pretty scared of putting their money in Moldova. So on the optimist note, the fact that pro-Western political group took over, not only took over power, but managed to keep the power and keep the majority, will make this country a little bit more safe from the perspective of investors. That's the first thing. So we can see probably some more money flowing from private investors. And other thing is that European Union is planning to, and agreements are already signed, it's already set, they were basically just waiting for electoral results, is planning to initiate this huge package of assistance. And I'm talking about 1.9 billion euro, which Moldova will have to spend in next 2 years, in next 2 years. And we are talking about money which will be spent on many different things, starting from infrastructure, transport, energy, and so on, hospitals, schools, and so on and so forth, you name it. So it should give a boost to Moldovan economy, if only Moldovan administration, which unfortunately is very small, and that's a huge problem in general of Moldovan administration, will be able to
enable it.
Exactly. I mean, really, and I've been working, I've been dealing with Moldova for many years already, like starting from 2007. I've been participating in different negotiations with Moldovan colleagues on different kind of credit lines and donations that they were receiving. And the problem is not about in money. Problem is about facilitation. So they really need people who will have enough knowledge, sometimes enough courage to use those money and invest them. But I believe anyway that we will see some large-scale investments which should give a boost, which should reignite Moldovan economy. And yeah, this is a thing which we can expect.
Thank you very much. Pieter, can you come through? And a good question which will need explanation. So if you can join us. Peter?
Yeah.
Lovely. Hi.
In the Romanian diaspora in Western Europe is voted about half for our because they are very dissatisfied by the way they are treated in Western Europe. How about the Moldovan diaspora? Are they also voting for DA, or are they mainly voting for PAS?
Mm-hmm. So we need to start from this very important fact that our party, and I'm talking about Romanian Our Party, so this huge political grouping, they have their sister party in Moldova, and it's called Our Moldova. But Our Moldova was never able to gather any significant support, and I'm really talking about, their support according to opinion polls was really, and even electoral results, was homeopathical. They've got like 0.1% of all votes. Why? Because from perspective of many Moldovan voters, and I'm talking about Moldovan Our, but also Romanian Our to an extent, is kind of shady party. A party which may have some links to Russia. This is what Moldovan electorate tend to think. They are simply thinking that, all those nationalistic group, anti-European group, even if they claim to be anti-Russian, they are in fact playing in favor of Russia because they would like to either dismantle European Union or stop European integration and so on and so forth. So this is why original AUR never really get any significant support in Moldova. And this is why George Simion, leader of AUR Romania, decided to move his support and put more resources, and I'm talking about this electoral campaign that AUR actually organized for DA, to Party of Democracy at Home. And Democracy at Home, thanks to this, managed to gather around 5.7% inside Moldova, or even a little bit more inside Moldova, and a little bit less abroad. So basically, when it comes to support for, to answer your question, when it comes to support for Democracy at Home, their most stable electoral base was actually in Moldova, not outside. Which is understandable. Why? Because AUR is not really very, I'm talking again about Romanian AUR, it's not really good when it comes to reaching Moldovan diaspora. They are able to reach Moldovans within Moldova using their network of social media and so on and so forth, but not Moldovan diaspora, which is in general very pro-European, as I said before, and tend to perceive AUR as troublemaker, as one of those Eurosceptic, maybe linked to Russia parties, which are not helpful when it comes to European integration of Moldova.
Thank you very much.
Romanian diaspora get voted large part for AUR because they have bullshit jobs and live in the worst condition in Western Europe. So they're very dissatisfied people. I cannot imagine that the Moldovan diaspora will live in a better condition in Western Europe. So.
Plus, it's a different kind of diaspora. It's exactly as you said. So Romanians are voting for AUR because they are dissatisfied as EU citizens. So they are kind of already, they feel that they are second-class citizens of EU. They've got bullshit jobs, that big boys in EU like France or Germany is not treating them well enough, and so on and so forth. Moldovan diaspora is not thinking in this term. Moldovan diaspora is still thinking in terms of getting away from Russian influences and becoming member of European Union. So that's why they tend not to vote for parties like AUR as much as Romanians.
The disillusionment with Europe sets in 20 years after you get in, something like that. So Marty has another question, I think.
No, I didn't. I was just thinking back to Kamil when we were there. They were talking about getting into the EU by 2030. So I was thinking about the lack of people that they have available to them to do all of the work and complete all of the checklists, so to speak.
It's still a problem. So just for the others, joining EU till 2030 is the slogan that PAS is using, and they are using this all the time. They recently kind of changed it. They said that they will be ready to join in 2028, 2029, which is, as I said, is probably it's totally doable. Whether they will become member of European Union in 2030 or not, it's a little bit more complicated. Of course, it depends on the political decision. But they still got this huge problem. I may tell you that I've participated with in a monitoring mission with my Lithuanian colleagues just a couple of months ago, and we did this tour the ministries, and our Lithuanian colleagues prepared a list of 150 experts from Lithuania who were, participating in the process of Lithuanian European integration, and they were willing to send those people to, not all of them, but at least part of them, to Moldova to help their Moldovan colleagues to facilitate this integration process. And well, I cannot get into details, particularly online, but I will tell you that there were huge gaps or within the administrative system of Moldova. There were really some people who were working their asses off because they were working literally like 24 hours a day to complete certain documents, and they were doing that alone. Or there were some people within fiscal institutions who were not really who are not really knowing what they're doing because they had no time to really dig into regulations regarding, I don't know, VAT, regarding, and the European Union, right? VAT, or those contributions. This is a thing which they are still trying to figure out, the contributions of member states to the EU budget, because it's really complicated mechanism. And you've got like four people sometimes who need to figure out how it works in Moldova, right? In case of, I will tell you other thing. I've been in Brussels for a couple of months last year. Poland was then leading a presidency of European Union, as it was our turn. So in order to do this properly, Poland hired additional, I think around 200 people to the permanent representation, so basically our embassy. So we had like around 300 people working in permanent representation in Brussels, only in order to facilitate our presidency. Moldovan embassy in European Union, which is very much responsible for a large part of the negotiation process, comprises of 10 people. 10. Literally 10. So we are talking about this kind of disproportion, and yeah, it's still a huge problem for them. But they are moving forward still.
We normally wrap these sessions up after about 45 minutes. There's one sort of broader question I want to get to before we finish, which is, if you were sitting in Moscow and thinking about, Putin's project to advance in Ukraine and maybe elsewhere. And we hear in Poland and the Baltic states lots of concerns from politicians who basically think they're next, that if there was another Russian move, they would be first in line. It's always seemed to me that it's much more likely to be Moldova. It's a non-NATO member. It's relatively easy. It's weak, and that would seem to me the obvious first target for any further Russian expansionism. Am I wrong?
No, you're totally right. And I would say more Moldovans, and I'm talking about regular Moldovans and Moldovan politicians, are fully aware of that. And they understand that whatever they think about European integration, whatever they're planning when it comes to their future, it all depends on the result of war in Ukraine. If Ukraine will remain independent, if Ukraine will, even if it will lost some territories, but it will remain independent country, affiliated and associated with the Western Europe, with EU and so on and so forth, Moldova will manage. Moldova will stay where it is, and even with some Russian money pumped into political system and party system, they will stay where they are and they will remain on the European path. If Ukraine fail, then Moldova is next. I mean, that's from Moldovan perspective, that's obvious. And they know this from day one of this war. So they simply hope for the best. This is why they're supporting Ukraine so much, and they're openly saying that basically Ukrainians are fighting for their future as well.
A non-NATO member, so no possibility of NATO putting in significant military support. Not that it does much for the Baltics or Poland, but I mean, it does something. And so basically you're down in terms of shoring up its defenses. It's that the European billions, right?
Exactly, yeah. And as you said, it's a weak country. I mean, Moldova is first and foremost, Moldova is a neutral country, constitutionally neutral. So even if they would like to ask for military presence of Romanians or some other NATO member, technically they cannot do this, which is an additional problem. And Russian troops are already there. We need to keep that in mind. Their presence is symbolic. We're talking about 1,500 people in Transnistria, but still there are some Russian troops there. And of course, there are no Western troops basically in Moldova. So yeah. If Russia would like to go all the way through Ukraine and to Moldova, they would do this easily.
Okay, we've reached 1:43, so I think we should wrap this up. Alex has got some slides to show us, and I'd just like to put those up now if we can. The first being, first of all, thank you very much, Kamil, for your excellent talk. And,
my pleasure.
Very energetic and lively speaker who gets it all across very well. So that's it. Thank you very much, Kamil, and thank you everyone for your questions and your participation. And from Owen Bennett-Jones here in London, goodbye.